Deep in the Atlantic Ocean, there is a stretch of water so vast and so unremarkable that most maps show it with no sign of warning, no marks of danger. And yet, for decades, sailors and pilots have whispered its name in fear. The Bermuda Triangle, a place between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. A place that seems ordinary, yet has swallowed ships and airplanes as if the ocean itself demands tribute. To some, it is nothing but myth. To others, it is the most mysterious corner of our planet. And to those who lost loved ones there, it is a wound that never healed. It was December 5th, 1945, when the Bermuda Triangle earned its darkest reputation. At Fort Lauderdale Naval Air Station in Florida, 5 Avenger torpedo bombers prepared for a training flight. This was a routine mission: fly east over the Atlantic, practice bombing runs, turn north, then back west to base. The pilots were young but well-trained. The leader, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, had over 2,500 hours of flying experience. The weather was clear, the ocean calm, visibility good. There was nothing unusual about that day. At 2:10 p.m., Flight 19 lifted into the sky. Engines roared, propellers chopped the humid air, and the formation climbed over the Atlantic. For more than an hour, everything seemed normal. Then, at 3:40 p.m., radio operators picked up a strange transmission. It was Taylor. His voice sounded troubled. "This is an emergency," he said. "We don't know where we are. The ocean doesn't look like it should." Static filled the channel. Then another pilot's voice cut in, nervous, almost pleading. "We can't find west. Everything is strange." For the next 2 hours, Fort Lauderdale tried desperately to guide the lost pilots, but their compasses had gone wild. North and south seemed to swap places. West vanished altogether. The men circled, searching for land, but saw only endless water below them. As the sun began to set, panic grew. The last words from Flight 19 were chilling. "We are not certain of any position. We are lost." And then silence. 5 planes, 14 men vanished into the night. No distress signals, no explosions reported, nothing. The Navy immediately dispatched a rescue seaplane with 13 crew members on board, but within minutes, that plane too disappeared. Witnesses at sea later reported seeing a fireball in the sky, but no wreckage was ever found. 27 men were lost in a single day. Investigators searched for weeks. Not a single trace was discovered. The Navy concluded that Flight 19 had most likely run out of fuel and ditched at sea, but experts asked, why were the compasses spinning? Why couldn't Taylor, an experienced pilot, recognize the Florida coast? Why did the rescue plane vanish just as suddenly? The official report was rewritten multiple times. Eventually, it declared, "Cause unknown." And so, a legend was born. Just 3 years after Flight 19 disappeared, the Bermuda Triangle struck again. It was January 30th, 1948, when a British South American Airways aircraft known as the Star Tiger prepared for its final leg toward Bermuda. The aircraft, a Tudor IV airliner, was carrying passengers across the Atlantic. The flight had been long but uneventful. On board were 31 people, businessmen, families, ordinary travelers. The crew had no reason to expect trouble. The weather was rough earlier in the journey, with strong winds and turbulence, but as they neared Bermuda, the skies began to calm. Captain B.W. McMillan was in command, an experienced pilot. At 3:15 a.m., the Star Tiger radioed that everything was normal. They were flying low to avoid headwinds, but no one was worried. Bermuda was less than 2 hours away. It should have been an easy arrival, yet only 30 minutes later, silence fell. Controllers waited for another transmission, but none came. The plane never appeared on Bermuda's radar. No wreckage washed ashore. No distress calls were heard. It was as if the Star Tiger had been erased from existence. Investigators searched the seas for days, but the Atlantic offered nothing. Families waited in vain for news. And once again, the Bermuda Triangle added dozens of lives to its grim tally. Less than a year later, in January of 1949, tragedy repeated itself. Another British South American Airways plane, the Star Ariel, departed Bermuda bound for Jamaica. This time, the weather was perfect. The sky was crystal clear, visibility unlimited. Passengers could see the ocean glittering beneath them as the aircraft climbed into smooth air. The captain's last transmission reported everything normal. There was no panic, no sign of distress. Minutes later, silence. The Star Ariel vanished. No wreckage, no bodies, no explanation. 2 modern airliners, gone within 12 months. Both in the same region. The British Civil Aviation Board was baffled. Their report offered no conclusion beyond unknown causes. But in the minds of the public, the legend of the Bermuda Triangle grew stronger. To lose two large aircraft in calm weather, without a trace, seemed almost supernatural. But the disappearances were not limited to British aircraft. On December 28, 1948, in between the tragedies of the Star Tiger and the Star Ariel, another disaster occurred, this time involving one of the most reliable aircraft ever built, the Douglas DC-3. This aircraft had flown countless miles safely across the world. That night, it was flying from San Juan, Puerto Rico to Miami, carrying 32 passengers. The captain, Robert Lindquist, was highly experienced. The weather was good. At 10:30 p.m., Lindquist radioed Miami to confirm his position. "We are approximately 50 miles south of Miami. All is well." The words carried no hint of trouble. The passengers lightly relaxed, preparing for landing, unaware that within minutes their lives would vanish into history. Miami radio waited for further updates, but none came. The DC-3 never landed. It vanished in the night, just a short distance from the Florida coast. Search teams combed the waters. The Coast Guard dispatched vessels, but once again, no trace was found. No debris, no floating luggage, no bodies. The plane had disappeared as if it had never existed. The case of the DC-3 became one of the most haunting in aviation history. How could a plane, minutes from landing, simply vanish? Investigators later discovered the aircraft's batteries were low and its radios may have been failing. But that did not explain why no wreckage was ever found in shallow waters. It did not explain why radar never showed the aircraft approaching. Once again, the Bermuda Triangle remained silent. By now, the public no longer missed the idea of a cursed region in the Atlantic. Newspapers called it the Devil's Triangle. Pilots whispered about strange magnetic forces that made compasses spin wildly. Sailors reported seas that. The mystery of the Bermuda Triangle is not confined to the skies. Long before modern aviation, sailors told stories of ships that entered the region and never returned. Their fates became whispers across harbors and naval bases, feeding a legend that has only grown with time. The most infamous case is that of the USS Cyclops. In March of 1918, during the final year of World War I, this enormous Navy collier left Brazil, loaded with manganese ore, bound for Baltimore. She was one of the largest ships in the American fleet, nearly 550 feet long, with a crew of over 300 men. The Cyclops was no fragile vessel. She had served faithfully for years. Commanded by Lieutenant Commander George Worley, the ship set a steady course north through the Caribbean. The journey was expected to be routine. The weather was calm, the seas gentle. Yet somewhere between Barbados and the Chesapeake Bay, the USS Cyclops disappeared. There was no distress signal, no wreckage ever surfaced, no enemy submarine claimed the kill. More than 300 men vanished without leaving a single trace. To this day, it remains the largest loss of life in U.S. naval history not caused by combat. The disappearance shocked the nation. Families waited in silence, searching newspapers for updates that never came. The Navy launched one of the most extensive investigations of the era. But in the end, they were forced to admit the truth. The ship and crew were lost without a trace. That phrase, "without a trace," would echo across decades of Bermuda Triangle lore. But the Cyclops was not alone. Decades later, two of her sister ships, the Proteus and the Nereus, also vanished while crossing the Atlantic in the same region. Both were carrying heavy cargo. Both were sturdy Navy-built vessels, and both disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Just like the Cyclops, neither ship ever sent out a distress call. It was as if the ocean had simply swallowed them whole. The disappearances were not limited to military vessels. Merchant ships and private craft also seemed to vanish in unnerving numbers. One such case was the Carroll A. Deering, a massive 5-masted schooner that was discovered run aground in 1921 along the coast of North Carolina, just outside the Triangle's borders. The ship was eerily intact, but its entire crew had vanished. Lifeboats were missing, the galley showed signs of a hastily abandoned meal, and the captain's log was gone. Investigators speculated about piracy, mutiny, or storms, but the truth was never found. The Deering became known as the ghost ship of the Atlantic. Another chilling case occurred in 1963 when the SS Marine Sulphur Queen, a 524-foot tanker loaded with molten sulfur, sailed into the Triangle with 39 crewmen aboard. The ship was considered unseaworthy by some inspectors, but she departed nonetheless. Days later, only fragments of debris were found drifting in the Gulf of Mexico. The ship herself was gone. Families received no answers. The Coast Guard's final report simply stated, "Cause unknown." For sailors, these stories became warnings whispered in every port. Navigating the Bermuda Triangle meant confronting the unknown. Some spoke of sudden rogue waves, walls of water rising from nowhere. Others told of waterspouts and storms that seemed to appear without warning. More superstitious voices insisted the region was cursed, haunted by spirits of the deep, or that it hid secrets beyond human comprehension. By the mid-20th century, as aviation accidents piled on top of maritime mysteries, the Bermuda Triangle's reputation as a deadly zone of vanishing had fully taken hold. Newspapers gave it dramatic headlines: "The Sea's Graveyard," "The Triangle of Death." Writers claimed that over 1,000 ships and planes had disappeared. Whether the numbers were exaggerated or not, the stories of the Cyclops, the Carroll A. Deering, the Marine Sulphur Queen, and countless smaller craft left an undeniable scar. Families had no graves to. For decades, the Bermuda Triangle has stood at the crossroads of science and myth, a place where the boundaries between fact and fiction blur. If the Triangle has claimed so many ships and planes, then why? What is it about this patch of ocean that seems to defy logic? Scientists, sailors, and storytellers have all offered explanations, some grounded in nature, others stretching into the extraordinary. One of the earliest and most persistent theories involves magnetic anomalies. Navigators for centuries noticed that compasses in the region sometimes behaved strangely. Normally, a compass points to magnetic north, not true north, but in a few places on Earth, the two lines up almost perfectly. The Bermuda Triangle is said to be one of those rare locations. Sailors claimed that when their compasses swung wildly, they lost their bearings, drifting fatally off course. In an age before GPS, such a small error could be deadly. Meteorologists point to sudden, violent storms. The waters of the Atlantic in this region are warm, fueling hurricanes, tropical depressions, and waterspouts. Pilots and captains often reported skies that went from calm blue to raging gray in minutes. Modern radar can detect such changes, but in the past, crews would have been blindsided. Some scientists believe that microbursts, intense downdrafts of air, could slam aircraft into the sea without giving pilots a chance to react. The ocean itself also hides dangers. The seabed of the Bermuda Triangle contains some of the deepest trenches in the Atlantic. Wreckage that sinks into these dark abysses might never be seen again, fueling the impression of total disappearance. Adding to the mystery is the theory of methane hydrates. Beneath the seabed lie vast pockets of frozen methane gas. If disturbed, they can erupt violently, turning water into a frothy, unstable mass. A ship caught above such a release might lose buoyancy and sink almost instantly. For aircraft flying low, a methane burst could even disrupt engines. While unproven, the theory remains chilling. There are also those who turn to more fantastic explanations. Some believe the triangle is a gateway, a portal to another dimension. These theorists argue that time slips, strange clouds, and electronic malfunctions suggest an energy unlike any other place on Earth. Stories abound of pilots who claim to have flown through swirling tunnels of mist, only to find themselves hundreds of miles from where they should be, with lost time unaccounted for. Others see extraterrestrial hands at work. In the 1960s and 70s, during the height of UFO fascination, authors suggested that alien craft might be abducting ships and planes for study. They pointed to the Atlantic disappearance in Australia and linked it to triangle vanishings, creating an image of the Atlantic as a hunting ground for beings beyond our world. And then, there is Atlantis. Popularized by writers like Charles Berlitz, the idea suggests that the fabled lost civilization lies buried beneath the waves of the Bermuda Triangle, its advanced technology still active, interfering with ships and planes above. While archaeologists reject this notion, the romance of Atlantis remains irresistible to the imagination. The truth may be far less supernatural, yet no less dangerous. Statistically, the Bermuda Triangle is one of the busiest shipping and flight lanes in the world. More traffic means more accidents. Combine this with unpredictable weather, strong currents like the Gulf Stream, and the natural human tendency to search for patterns, and the triangle's reputation begins to make sense. Still, statistics cannot erase the eerie silences left by ships like the Cyclops or the haunting transmissions of pilots like those of Flight 19. Each theory, whether scientific or speculative, adds another layer to the mystery. The Bermuda Triangle endures not because it is fully understood, but because it is not. It is a puzzle that resists a final answer, a story that... The Bermuda Triangle is not merely a place on the map. It is an idea, a mythos, a symbol of humankind's eternal struggle against the unknown. For centuries, sailors and pilots have trusted their instruments, their training, and their courage, only to find themselves humbled by nature, betrayed by technology, or swallowed by mystery. Whether the triangle is a deadly reality or an illusion born from human fear and error, its legend endures because of the stories it has left behind. Consider the voices of Flight 19, young men on a simple training mission, suddenly caught in confusion, their compass needles spinning, their confidence crumbling. Their words, captured forever in scratchy radio transmissions, remind us of the vulnerability of even the bravest crews. Their fate, never fully explained, set the tone for decades of speculation that followed. Think of the DC-3 carrying its passengers toward Miami on what should have been an ordinary night flight. Its lights never appeared on the horizon. Its engines never roared into the safety of the runway. Families waited, authorities searched, but the ocean kept its silence. No wreckage, no closure, only questions. And remember the USS Cyclops, a massive steel colossus capable of withstanding storms and waves, reduced to nothing more than a whisper of memory. Hundreds of sailors vanished with her, their lives and stories dissolved into the endless blue. For their loved ones, the mystery is not romantic, it is painful, a reminder that the ocean takes without explaining. The Bermuda Triangle persists in the human imagination, not only because of loss, but because of wonder. Every culture has its haunted places, its forbidden forests, its restless seas. The Triangle is ours, a modern legend born from radio waves, military reports, and the primal fear of the deep. In a world dominated by satellites, radars, and global networks, it is comforting, in a strange way, to know that mysteries still exist, places where technology falters and nature remains untamed. Scientists will continue to test theories, magnetic fields, methane hydrates, rogue waves, human error. And skeptics will remind us that statistically, the Bermuda Triangle is no more dangerous than any other busy corridor of the ocean. Yet, numbers do little to soothe the imagination. For every chart and statistic, there is a grieving family, a missing crew, an unanswered radio call. Facts explain, but they do not heal. Perhaps that is why the Bermuda Triangle endures. Not because it is unsolvable, but because it represents the very edge of human understanding. It is the line where reason gives way to story, where evidence meets imagination. In its waters, people see not only danger, but possibility. The possibility that the world still holds secrets. The possibility that our maps are not as complete as we believe. The possibility that just beyond the horizon lies something we were never meant to fully understand. And so, the legend continues. Ships will keep sailing. Aircraft will keep flying. Technology will keep improving. Yet somewhere between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, the sea will remain vast, deep, and silent. And when another story of disappearance surfaces, as it surely will, the world will once again whisper the same question, half in fear and half in awe. What really happened in the Bermuda Triangle? The answer may never come, or perhaps the silence itself is the answer.